Hello, everyone. I know it's at noon, so maybe you're hungry. So please bear with me for the next 30 minutes. So the title, Incremental Migration from React to Svelte. It's our experience. We used almost 1.5 years to migrate from React to Svelte. So I think just a great chance to share our story. If you're interested, you can scan the slides. So hope you have a, pleasant mobile experience swiping slides. Yeah, let's get started. Quick introduction. I'm David. I'm currently a product manager at Dip. In the past 2 years, I was an engineer lead. And because it's co-scope, I need to talk about my experience in the open source community. I contribute into its ESBuild, Vite, and Svelte ecosystem for more than 4 years. And also I author a little plugin called ESBuild plugin Pinot. If you're in Node.js ecosystem, you probably know what Pinot is, which has more than 70,000 weekly downloads on NPM. Right. Oops. Let me just... Right. So before I get started, I like to share, because this year I joined Svelte Summit, which is in Barcelona, a great city, great food, great vibe. I met a lot of great people, especially the core team, the community, and also met my new friends. I call it a Svelte Asia gang. So on the right side is Theo from Japan. I think that Henry also know him. Also in the middle, his Timmy, which is the core part of the SvelteKit core team, and he's from Malaysia. We are the only 3 people from Asia fly to Barcelona to attend this. And also I finally met Scott Tolensky. If you ever listen to the Syntax podcast, he's the host, and he's the one who brings me to the Svelte world around 2019 or 2020. All right, so this talk is about migration. So I believe that for most front-end, not just front-end, for any kind of engineers, you certainly will encounter the situation is like, all right, we have a lot of tech that we need to do the migration, we want to do refactor, we want to rewrite some things, and you just reach out to your boss to say, I have something for you. This is what's happening. Let's discuss our roadmap for the next 6 months. New features, improve UX, and you say migration, and you're just being thrown out the window. This is the common case you can see almost everywhere, because rewrite or refactor or migration, for most of the time, they yield really small value, especially from the business perspective. So if you think of, I need to do a big bang migration, for 100% of the time, you will get denied. So, but we have a lot of problems. So, in our use case, we have 80% code written in JavaScript, no test, no documentation. We have a really critical performance bottleneck in our graphical editor. So I have introduced what our company does. We're a Dip. We help our clients like cosmetic brands Estee Lauder, Shiseido, L'Oreal to help them create visuals, and they can publish at an e-commerce platform like Lazada, Amazon, Momo, PC Home, something like that. And we found that for a lot of this kind of designers, they have the same pain point, is that if they need to do the resizing, let's say you have a square form and you need to resize to a different aspect ratio, they usually will need to open different Photoshop files and add it in. Usually, let's say 1 campaign per month, they have more than 10 sizes, and designers need to take 2 weeks to finish all of them. So our graphical editor is similar to between Figma and Canva, but you can add multiple visuals at once, so which can drastically reduce the creation time from hours to just minutes. So we have a lot of performance problems, and me as an engineer, we did a lot of optimization for months, and it still yields limited gains. So if any of you have already listened to this morning's talk from Henry, you probably learned like why React have this kind of, the re-rendering problem or performance issue is because you need to do the reconciliation every single tick. So we'll talk about that later. But the truth is, complete rewrites are not an option. We need some incremental approach. So if you know who Aiden is, he's the author of React Scan and Million.js. And he used to post something like this, like roast Twitter, GitHub, or TikTok and say, I just want to click like, and why everything just re-renders, right? And you can notice that, okay, I'm a seasoned React engineer. They're not doing it right. They need to be really focused and be careful about the memoization, using use memo, use callback. And probably in the future, you just can imagine, oh, React compiler is ready, so everything just be much faster. But that is not true, because if you look at this, it's actually being handled by different teams. So which means that if you want to solve that properly, you need to coordinate with different teams and say, we have this kind of state management problem. And usually it's just so hard to do that, especially for those teams that are using microfrontends. So I'm thinking about, okay, so we did a lot of optimization, try to use memoization, use callback, memo everywhere, every single places. And if I remember correctly, our editor, we have I think it's more than hundreds of components, more than 50,000 lines of code, and it's written in JavaScript. So after rounds of optimization, I realized one thing is something you're just trying to solve the problem on top of a certain layer, but you need to go down deeper to see the root cause. And for our case, the root cause is React itself. Its design, it's native of the reconciliation, the virtual DOM diffing. So Ryan Carnieto, the author of Solid.js, Ryan Florence, the author of Remix, they also agreed on not the React problem, but also like how we see the problem, how we tackle it, how we discuss, how we deep dive into a certain problem instead of solving a problem on top of different layers. So you need to go down to actually understand the ins and outs of a framework, how it's been designed, and you probably will have some aha moment that, all right, I need to have some idea. So this talk, I'm not going to introduce what Svelte is, what Svelte 5 is. I can have a really brief introduction, which is it uses signals under the hood, and now Svelte 5 provides fine-grained reactivity. So the mental model shift, I think it's a big deal. Why? In React, you're always thinking, okay, re-rendering. So Morty is currently working on the memoization, the use callback, and the virtual DOM just handle it. But you know that you will have some problems, especially how you compose, how you do the componentization, how you manage those state properly. But this Svelte is different because whenever you update a single value, you use rune like state or derived, and you put it into your HTML. Let's say you just put into the div tag. Whenever the value change, only the div tag will be re-rendered. Not the whole component, not your children components, only that specific HTML tag. So I think that the mental model shift is so hard to explain in plain Chinese or English because it's something you need to work on it and you feel it and you see it and then you just click. So I think that Rich Harris, the author of Svelte, also agree because a while ago I was working on a blog post about this talk, and he retweet and say Svelte kind of stopped marketing performance because React is fast and move, but it's not true. So anyway, the real money code is feature that took days in React can be built in hours with Svelte. Why? Because you can imagine once you have more and more components out there, whenever you need to fix something, you actually need to trace down all of the state, how the data flow within different components, and you need to decipher it. You need to, to lock down every single component and try to do the profiling. You go to the network tab, you go to the dev console, you do the profiling, and you find something different. So in an earlier slide, you see the Aiden. He have some analytics about the performance of TikTok and performance of GitHub, and actually the problems will be two places. Literally, one is when you use Redux, you have the performance problem whenever you do some state management. And also, like TikTok, is literally, if I remember correctly, it's about the re-rendering. So why it can be built in hours with Svelte? Because less code, less bug. That's the golden rule. So with less code, it's easier for you to troubleshoot. And because it only re-render that specific tag, you don't need to trace down your component tree to understand what's happening there. So the big bang rewrite is not possible. So you need to do the certain conversion, like to convert your technical points to something that your business team, your marketing, your boss can understand for non-technical people. So traditional approach would say, we need to do the migration. We need to spend 6 months, stop all features, and we will have a big bang release. And in history, for most of the time, these were just a big failure. So if you have any experience migrating a large system, like your backend system, your architecture, you might see a lot of talk about incremental migration. So I'm thinking about a similar approach. So our approach is ship incrementally, measure each step, prove value, and gain confidence. So how we did that. Let's talk about a migration strategy. I really want a really simple way that our team can try Svelte with a really less burden, pleasant learning curve. So later I will provide my repo, which is my whole blog post and all of the code examples. You can see out there, if your React application is powered by Vite, not Webpack, not Next.js, Vite, then I have something for you. So our migration strategy is really simple. I'm starting with a pop-up window, the dialog or the model. Start with that, because you can't just detangle it with your original page or other components. It won't be messed up. So start with that. And once we get confidence to say, I just write a Svelte component alongside my React components, and there's no other setup, no microfrontends, no web components, just Svelte inside of React codebase. And once it's get validated, it's easier to move on to say, let's focus on the page. Let's rewrite the page. So we find something is less critical and start to do the incremental migration. So for the component, it only took us like a couple of days to finish that component. And for page, it probably take a month. And once we get more efficient, be more proficient about writing components alongside with each other, and then we pull the trigger to say, let's do something big. So previously, we just React a single page application, and now we focus on using SvelteKit. But it's still risky to just use SvelteKit right away. So we have another way to allow you to write your React components alongside your SvelteKit, and you just put your React components alongside your Svelte code base, and everything just works. No micro frontends, no web components, and even you don't need to install any other libraries, just React and React DOM. So start small, think big, test with isolated components, prove technical visibility, and built-in confidence, and demonstrate business value. So the easy one would be, we just create another component which is written in a different language. We have 30% less code, and it's way more performant, way easier to handle, and less bug. Your boss will like it. So, of course, we need to provide some measurable results, but I need to warn that it's just a vanity metrics, which means that this is just the numbers. It doesn't mean anything. Like from user's perspective, I only care about how long would it take for me to load this website, what's your shortest time that I can interact with with your application. So this measurement is really simple. We didn't do any further optimization. Just after the migration is done, we just compare the bundle size, the dev time, and lighthouse score. And need to be focused on the dev time. This is just a rough measurement, because I would say as long as your application grows, you will need to think of the maintenance cost. So the dev time will also, also need to consider the time you do the troubleshooting, you understand the problem, and how easy for your engineers that not familiar with Svelte and still hop onto the problem and try to solve it. So focus on user-facing metrics, not just technical ones. So it seems like, okay, the She key doesn't work here. But anyway, you can still find this on my repo. So it's just a simple use Svelte hook. And this, after you have this hook, you can write your Svelte component inside of your React application. And write there, the GIF, it just demonstrate you can, the above, which is the React count component, and below it's the Svelte count component. Nothing special. And over here is a hook in Svelte. So you can easily put your React components over here. I know that it's so hard to read, so you can reach out to the GitHub repo I will provide later. So you can see that this is Svelte, and the React components is over here. Yeah. Right, so not everything is positive. I would say they definitely have real challenges. So the ecosystem is still a problem for most people, but for me, I will see it in a different way. Because Svelte itself will compile your code into the vanilla performant JavaScript and CSS, so it's easier to adopt literally any JavaScript library out there. You don't need to find a specific library built for React, built for Vue, built for Svelte. You can just use JavaScript. A mental model shift, you need to unlearn a lot of things in React, because you don't need to think of reconciliation anymore. No, you don't need to think. It just change right away with real, no overhead, no virtual DOM overhead. Like literally you need to ship a lot of things, well, like virtual DOM, because there's an algorithm inside of it to do the diffing. And also be aware of the team learning curve. I'm already used Svelte for 5 years, and I actually write Svelte in my previous company. So I would say these are the only 2 companies use Svelte in Taiwan, probably. The learning curve, I would say learning Svelte itself only took me a weekend to understand the most concept. And I can't just start to write an application within a week. But the difference is that I already write JavaScript for more than 5 years. So I'm really proficient in writing React, not Vue. So when I pick up Svelte, it just right click. Best practices, I would say for a newer library, newer ecosystem, it's hard to find some education resource out there. So in the repo, I do share some of our best practices. So if any of you write a class component before, like class React component before, actually we're starting to use class, but it's not for component, it's for state management. So it's really clean. So I won't have the code snippet here. So you can also check out my repo. It have full repository with some code examples and easier to consume and understand. So best practices, you need to discuss with your team to find the best way, because now you have a better developer experience. So now you need to think about how should we align what we should do things. I'm not talking about linting. I'm not talking about the coding style. I'm talking about how you architect things. So I believe that these are just temporary growing pains, not blockers. So I would say key takeaways. Start with low-risk components. Measure everything like your bundle size, your performance, your developer experience. I would say developer experience is something I gain a lot after I no longer need to write React. Like just the pure joy. I can get off the work early. I can sleep well at night, something like that. And also, because it's an incremental migration, you need to be really careful about how to communicate your business value. Especially, I was an engineer lead. I need to talk to stakeholders, which is they have no technical background. You need to tell them why we need to do that. So in our case, the problem was we tried to acquire an enterprise level customer, and they have a lot of requirements. And as a startup, you start small, and at a certain point, you found out that your architecture can no longer support your business. So you definitely need to do some change. So in our backend, we already migrate a lot of our system to aim to support our enterprise customer. So I think that is also a good chance to say, all right, so our front end was based on our previous understanding, but now we need to acquire enterprise level customer. But we cannot stand with those performance problems. So I can remember I talked to my boss and say, you know what? If we don't do anything, we can keep solving bugs in our editor. Once I move a text element to 2 pixel and the whole canvas just been re-rendered. We can deal with that if our customers accept that, but I will need to warn you, whenever we want to add a new feature, a bug fix, it takes time. And the time is not about 2 hours, I mean week. That's really scary. But you need to be really clear about why it will happen. So I actually try to help them to understand the complexity inside of this, especially you're handling more than 100,000 lines of code, and we don't use any other library to write our editor. It's vanilla JavaScript, and we use SVG a ton. So usually if user try to render, let's say 100 visuals, 100 visuals might have different proportions, different aspect ratio, and each visual they have headline, sub-headline, call to action text, background image, product image, giveaway, and discount, and some stickers around that. And you have hundreds of thousands of visuals in one page. And we're not Figma. We don't have like hundreds of engineers working on WebGL integration. So in a pure DOM scenario, using React to control all of them is probably the worst idea. But it's that popular, the ecosystem, easier to hire engineer. So I won't blame them. I won't blame the engineer who worked on that before. But yeah, that's something we need to deal with. You also need to give your team time to adapt, to understand, because it's a total paradigm shift. So I, like once every 2 weeks or once every month, I will ask our front-end engineer to say, how's your overall developer experience? At first, they say, yeah, easier to pick up, faster to write. And later on, when I ask them to fix bug in our old React application, and they say, oh my God, I cannot stand with that any longer. Why can't I just write Svelte? And I say, yeah, you have the chance. Let's migrate most of them into Svelte. So I would say focus on incremental wins, not perfection. You cannot just have everything migrated to a shiny framework instantly. It takes time. In our use case, it actually takes more than 1 year. So we also need to support our old platform, which is purely written in React, and we have some proof of concept and some MVP right in Svelte to prove that way works. And then we just started with a new platform purely written in SvelteKit, and the most challenging part is on our editor. So our editor is still a React component, and that is the only piece of the React in our current code. And I'm currently working on the new editor, so hopefully you can show the community in the future that yeah, this is native, written in Svelte, and have the great performance. Right. I think that's most of it. So if you'd like to connect, here's my LinkedIn, X and Blue Sky. And if you want to know more, to learn more about the detail of the blog post and all of the code examples, you can scan the next QR code there. Yeah. So this is a repository. So you can see this is a really long blog post. Yeah. So all of this, I did just have the quick scan. Yeah. So if you already use Vite, you can just install Svelte and Vite plugin, and you're done. You just copy paste this code block, and you can write Svelte in your React application right away. No web components, no micro front ends, right inside of your code. Yeah. And also in Svelte is much easier. You don't need to install any other libraries, just React and React DOM, and you just use this code snippet to import your React code to your Svelte, and it works like a charm. Yeah. So this repo, you can just directly see it. It's a mono repo. It demonstrates. Yeah, of course I don't have network. But however, yeah, you can see there's two different apps in it. One is React powered by Vite, another one is SvelteKit. Yeah. Right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and if you don't have your lunch yet, you can finally have time. Yeah. So any questions you can ask in Chinese. 我完全可以说中文，对，只是我去参加 Svelte Summit 的时候，大家都说，if you have recording, please be English because they need it. But we don't have recording, so I say, nah, I just prepare this one in case that I will have an international talk in the future. 你先说。Yes. Yes. Yeah, so you catch that. In fact, yes. This is a code snippet I copied from, I think it's a YouTuber. I don't know, like tech influencer, whatever. There's no, I would say this is just a proof of concept because I know that there is some performance penalty afterwards. So I only get to rewrite a whole page and we're just done that there. We don't do the further mix and match anymore in the React code base because we just want to prove it's viable and it's easier for developers to pick up. Yeah. OK， 绝大部分的，例如说 DND、SWR、React Query 这些东西都有对应的。那我会说对应的话，可能是 Community Maintain， 也有可能它会有一些问题。那我自己的经验的话，我会直接拿过来，然后稍微调整一下，因为对我来说，我用 Svelte 去把这些东西做出来的成本，比我去准备一个 React 的 library， 就是如果 React 没有这个 library， 我要自己写的话，那个的成本会相对高很多。那我会说，现在绝大部分你想得到的几乎都有了。如果你在3年前问我的话，我会说 maybe not， so 那可能只能在比较小规模的专案这样子。我的时间应该快到了，所以待会如果有任何的问题，你可以 connect 我，然后或者是直接跟我聊，或者是你可以在线上的时候跟我聊这样子。对，那我是 David， 谢谢。